Hi, friend. It's been a minute. I didn't mean to take such a long break, but life happened as it does, and so much happened in the US in the first 3 months of 2026. I'm not even sure what else will happen by the time this episode is finally released. To preface, this episode is going to cover some dark topics, but I want you to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and if you are able to finish this episode in its entirety, I would greatly appreciate your feedback on the topics covered today, which is about art materials used in protest art. I want to hear your thoughts, so send me an email, message me in Discord. You are welcome in this community, and I think we need community now more than ever. However, before we get into it, hi friend, I'm your host, Tara. I'm an eco artist in Wichita, Kansas, where I make eco-friendly art materials for artists of all levels. With that out, let's get into the breakdown of this episode. Skip to start episode to start the episode. I really struggled trying to figure out what I wanted this episode to be in light of what was happening in the world. And when I first started putting together this topic, the world kind of blew up. There are ICE protests, the horrific events caused by CPP and the Department of Homeland Security across the US, and then of course there's this Palestine Isles, and then eventually the US's war with Iran. The media coverage is just so massive. I feel every time I even remotely get clocked as being online, I get bombarded with videos, clips, news, social media posts of everything that's going to shit in the US right now and how this is affecting the rest of the world. But I also need to take a moment to share that I've also noticed the amount of content that doesn't address anything at all, acting like nothing is happening and appearing as some sort of satiation or distraction. This feeling that online media is being used to make sure that people don't leave their platforms as we become more desensitized to outrageous behaviors of world leaders, celebrities, and politicians. It becomes a question of how much further can these platforms share debilitating information without people completely shut down and walking away. And all of this is coming from someone who isn't even on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Fuck X. I can only imagine how everyone else is feeling right now. Like many people, both in the US and outside the US looking in, I've felt helpless. What can I say? What can I really do that would even really help? I can't bring myself to physically look into the files as I'm so scared as to what I'll find, and the ethics of what is being shared without victim protection. Coming back to the podcast, however, it also brings into question early on this platform that I've literally just started with the levels of political aptness and what I can share, what I shouldn't share, and what kind of platform do I want this podcast to be. All of it really early. I mean, this is supposed to be the third episode. So first, I want to apologize for the episode schedule being a bit behind, as I really need to take time for this to be handled with the care that it deserves. And secondly, when thinking about art history, one thing is made very clear. Art has always been political. From the lens of sociology, everything is political just through what you wear, to the people that you associate with, to the things that we can't change, like the color of your skin, our sexuality, and the disabilities that we have. What art has done throughout history is, in and of itself, a protest against the norm. As many art critics have stated before, art allows us to take a step back and really sit with what is normal and what's considered okay, and it helps us reevaluate and discuss what we, as humans, are willing to accept in our current climate. So, let's get started. Crazy morning in Washington, D.C. on October 11th, 1987. It's 60 degrees and windy as activists unveiled their months-long hard work at National Mall during the National Lesbian and Gay Rights March on Washington. A colorful quilt is carefully rolled out at sunrise. In full size, it's covering a space slightly larger than a football field, which is 110 meters long and 91 meters wide. The quilt reveals the names of loved ones that had passed. Many years earlier, on a Thursday afternoon in 1963, Birmingham, Alabama, school children of varying ages, even as young as 6 years old, skipped school to peacefully march with signs and singing church hymns. Over 1,000 children marched on May 2nd, only to be met with violence by police officers who used batons, police dogs, and fire hoses. In another lifetime, over a century ago, women across the U.S. straighten their yellow, purple, and white striped sashes and find the courage to raise their appliqued banners. They march along with their sisters and mothers holding these banners high. The words are all different, but they speak the same message: rights for women. All of these moments in the US span many decades of one another, but at their core, they change the future with nationwide calls to action. The art found within and out of these time periods helps shape the future we have today. While researching this topic for creating protest art, the idea arose that we exist as a means of playing a part. Whether it's physically out protesting, using your voice and singing, or using your body to create paintings, drawings, or taking photos of live events. Art is a means to help us remember what this feeling is like and reflect how we can change, creating a future not yet to come, but imagine one that could be. The most important thing to understand is that you do not have to be an artist to create protest art. Many times, protest art has gone without artist attribution because of a variety of reasons. The artist was lost to time, it was a commission, or in some cases, the artist or artists would be in danger if they were found out. Despite that, it was about revealing what needs changed. Anyone can do that. You can do that. Right now in the US, there are people being taken from their homes, but because of the heat from magnifying these events, people are taking a stand and making sure they get back home safely. There is a lot of bad happening right now, but there is also so much good. There are people coming together because of these art forms, because of these songs, these dances, these artworks. Working together brings about a more peaceful tomorrow, and that is what makes protest art so beautiful and ultimately successful, in my opinion. These pieces I bring about in today's episodes are only 3 examples of how different protest arts can look like, and the materials involved, along with a brief history of the change that followed. It was very difficult to only pick 3, and there will be details that I couldn't include due to time's sake, so please be kind to me. What is protest art? That's complicated. And it's not because there isn't an answer, it's just that the term protest art is more of a category. It's like trying to explain a movie genre. We can go to the movies and we can watch 3 different horror flicks, and they're all going to show different types of horror. Some can be scary, some can be funny, and others can just be downright silly. The working definition changes over time to include new thoughts that have yet to be introduced. Protest art is similar. It can be a painting, a drawing, it can be words, or it can be an action. Protesting by itself doesn't make the act of protesting an art, but there are instances where there is art in protesting. It can be a photograph taken, or a video recorded, or the performance of a dance, of a rock band, or of a speech. Modern and contemporary art author Jessica Lack describes protest art in her book Protest Art as a subversive political weapon. She breaks protest art into 2 categories: political art that explores political matters in response to an event, and activist art that seeks public participation. This distinction is made because of the intention presented behind each of these, one as a response and the other as a call to action. The artist is in a unique position because they choose to present their ideals through specific mediums in order to communicate a message to their audience. Artists must figure out how to share their message, what they want to say, and how they want to say it. Art can share the ideals of our present and what we find acceptable and what we find unacceptable. A little over 100 years ago, the women's suffrage movement was rising in popularity around the world. Women all over questioned the ruling of men and their rights as women who were at the time seen as property of men. During this movement, art created in this time helped to disseminate knowledge of a future where women and men could be equals, a future that did not exist yet. These women are thought to have created the modern tradition of coordinated protest banners, created by professionals that specifically sought out to spread a distinct message. These women wore sashes across their bodies, waved signs and banners, and marched while handing out leaflets and other paper ephemera in order to make their voices heard, be seen, and make an impact. The graphic designers for these sashes and paper ephemera were actually mass-produced by American businesses because where there is a need, there is a way to make money. The sashes were of varying colors of yellow, purple, and white silk fabric with black block printed text, usually of the words, "Vote for Women." Imported India silks became banners, and these women appliqued flowers and stenciled names. The prime age of manufacturing meant that there was a quick turnaround time to receiving prints, fabrics, posters, and magazines. Paper ephemera, or documents not meant to last, became the norm, which meant that it was also readily available for protest art. If paper was already going to be thrown away, why not use it for different purposes? Following the beginning of the First World War, the art movement Dadaism came to be. Due to time constraints, we'll actually save an in-depth discussion for Dadaism for another episode. One of the most important lines of thinking that came from Dadaism is that of the absurdity of sending our young to die in a war. Through this, collage was born. As a kid, you may have taken an art class where you were expected to cut out small pieces of objects or words from a magazine and make art with it. This is the collage experience most modern students have. However, collage is so much more than that. It can be physical, like cutting paper into pieces, but in the time of Dadaism, it was almost a performance, a way of living. Poems had no rhyme or even understanding. Words that were stringed together actually didn't make any sense, and there could also be no words at all. It could just be sounds. Dadaism sparked thoughts of what art could be and how we could protest the irrationality of war through art and performance. With the suffragettes, we turn these thoughts of what could be different into materials, in their sashes, signs, and banners, and then the inverse with Dadaists, turning mass produced materials into thought provoking artworks. Protest art became more than just fine paintings or posters on a wall. It bloomed to include performance of materials and with materials. Having thoughts of change and implementing change are still two seemingly vast points of action. How do we go from wanting to make change to appealing to others to also want to make a change? In 1987, human rights activist Cleve Jones creates the first panel to what will be the largest community arts project in history. He doesn't know this, of course, but the act of sewing a panel in memory of his friend Marvin Feldman will inspire thousands of others to make panels and send them to be attached to this memorial quilt. The first time this quilt is revealed in Washington, D.C. is in late 1987. It was made up of 1,920 panels carrying the names of friends, family members, and lovers that had passed away due to a terrifying and scary disease called AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Today, we have a significantly deeper understanding of HIV and AIDS, and while it still affects many millions of people in the United States alone, HIV is manageable, and modern treatments have saved countless lives almost to normal life expectancy. However, the early days of the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s was a different time. Filled people with the fear of the unknown, and as such, prejudice, racism, and discrimination played a heavy hand in how it viewed the gay male community, as reports of AIDS were higher in this group. There is plenty of misinformation regarding how AIDS was transmitted, which led to the mistreatment of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender peoples, especially people of color who suffered disproportionately from this discrimination and racism against Black and Asian communities. While this quilt is an act of love, you may ask what makes it protest art. By honoring loved ones, politicians, and celebrities who died of AIDS, it makes people live in the present. In the art itself, the craft of the labor, through sewing together pieces of the quilt, binding them to one another as physical representations of peoples and their lives. And of the protest, the display, the visual disruption of really seeing the damage, the lost lives. This becomes a heartbreaking piece about death, survival, and remembrance. Sitting with these thoughts while seeing the labor of thousands of people come together to build this almost 60-ton quilt, questions of the lives they must have lived come to mind. Their families and friends loved them so dearly to come together to create a beautiful piece representing their love. This also serves as a reminder to those that were lost and whose names aren't displayed. Had research been available sooner, and the push to help without prejudice and without discrimination, without racism, they could have lived longer lives. Instead of passing horrifically, they could have been left, seen their kids graduate high school, found a deep love and a warm embrace every night coming home from work. They could sit on the porch or balcony, enjoying the weather with a cool beverage during a hot summer's day. Memories of a future that we'll never realize due to the past that can't be changed is what makes art unique. This is what makes art utopic, creating a vision for what could be or what could have been. To me, this is the core of protest art, shining a light on humanity during its darkest moments and asking the public to question your reality, question the norms you live by, ask why are we okay with this and what can we do to change this for the better future. Through memorializing, we can bring about change and relate to other people, remind each other that we are in this together and what really matters in this life. The Children's March spanned a little over a week in May 1963, Birmingham, Alabama. Later named the Birmingham Children's Crusade, it began on Thursday, May 2nd at 1 p.m. as a peaceful protest against segregation led by school children. Incrementally and strategically, groups of about 50 students marched in pairs down different roads. Over 600 students were arrested in the first day, and by the next day, hundreds of more students continued the peaceful march. With the jails full, police officers were ordered to disperse the protesters using violence. The violence against school children was horrendous. Photographers and news stations captured police using dogs, batons, and fire hoses to harm these children as a way to break up the nonviolent protest. While this seems like a distant past to most Americans, this only occurred 63 years ago. There are people still alive today that would have watched this violence live, would have seen this in the news, or even participated in the discussions of the march. An incredibly important facet to note, however, is that the objects from this time are also still around. They don't just disappear, they exist in the same spaces we do. In the exhibition titled An Epitaph for Civil Rights and My Labor is My Protest are gallery walls with framed decommissioned fire hoses of varying lengths and colors. Shades of yellow, red, and blue hoses are wrapped, bent, ironed, and morphed onto frames and into boxes. Taking objects that already exist in the world and repurposing them for art is known as a ready-made. Artist Theaster utilizes these ready-mades, these fire hoses, as a remembrance of the Black American struggle in the Civil Rights Movement. Fire hoses were used to try to prevent Black Americans from protesting their right to civil liberties. The objects themselves were turned away from their purpose of putting out fires and instead turned into politically charged objects used to humiliate and harm people who believed in a better life for themselves and their loved ones. Theaster puts these fire hoses in boxes and on frames to remove them from their historical context and at the same time find a way to symbolize the object to its past. The object is no longer serving this violent history, and yet it can trigger deep emotions of guilt, nostalgia, pain, and fear. These fire hoses are charged objects filled with a multitude of interpretations from the audiences, which is what makes it powerful art. Theaster in an interview in The Art of Social Engagement, says, "The fire hose felt like it was a found object, the loaded object, the color, the texture that could stand on its own as a thing, so that if there was no narrative, there was still this form that was elegant and quiet. And then that form was also connected to this history that was charged." This objectivist approach reveals these fire hoses as independent objects with their own history, their own form. By playing with this material, Theaster reveals this preconceived notion of fire hose, which purpose was warped to harm peaceful protesters. Without this context, the viewer is left questioning the reason why these hoses are displayed. Curiosity blooms, questions rise, and the need to seek further information presents itself. As human beings, we are naturally curious. Theaster states that his work comes from his interest in being connected to the civil rights movements and what it means for him today of the actions from those in the past. As quoted, he says, "The civil rights movement was a really important moment in Black American history, in American history. Injustice with regard to racial segregation, job opportunities, had come to a point of politically charged speech-making protests, acts of peaceful resistance by Black people all over the country. How do you make that past moment potent again?" Theaster uses these fire hoses to reintroduce, as he calls, the possibility of struggle. By building a box for the fire hoses, they were similar to a portrait. Through Gates' playful approach with this charged material, he learned he could do so much with it. Testing the limits of the materials allowed him to create these gorgeous works of art and turn this material into something else, something beautiful from a harmful past. In today's age of instantaneous information, protest art has become synonymous with the term activism. To protest something can mean that we want people to take a stance, for someone to do something about it. We are bombarded with so much media on an hourly basis that it's so easy to become apathetic or overwhelmed with life. It can feel like there's so many calls to action pulling you in every which way. How does one even begin to make protest art when there's so much being protested? I myself have thought, I'm not educated enough, I'm not knowledgeable enough, or what's happening is too far away from me to help. I don't have the money, I don't have social media, or even my family doesn't share the same beliefs that I do. My friend, first, breathe. It's okay. The world we live in is really big and it's really scary. But the great thing about that is there's literally billions of people on this planet all working towards similar goals to help other people. You are not alone. We are all working together in this intricately balanced pulley system that we call society. With that said, to start creating protest art, pick what speaks to you the most. Something from the heart and soul. A cause near and dear to you because you will feel much more at ease and find a clearer path to expression. And finding an organization is a great way to find others that also believe in the cause too. Together, we create movements. Use what you have available to push forward your means to protest and your call to action. As we've seen with today's examples, past movements utilize strategic nonviolent action to spread word, putting words to paper and creating ephemera to hand out, or creating art with one-use materials like cardboard and paper meant for the trash. Memorializing loved ones through the labor of love to engage within the embrace of community, and using or misplacing context to create art pieces that speak louder than words from materials you'd never think to use, like fire hoses. Learning what has worked in the past to spark change allows us to see a framework to move forward. We aren't recreating the wheel, we're utilizing it to build a vehicle of change. If you are interested in a list of ideas, Gene Sharp founded the Albert Einstein Institute, which is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the academic study of nonviolent action. And he wrote 198 methods of nonviolent action. This document clearly lists methods broken up into categories of how to implement nonviolent action in certain scenarios and by certain peoples. The list was developed by Sharp's observations of successful nonviolent protests, including Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.'s campaigns, to which Sharp was able to codify it for use by groups and countries all over the world. Protest art in this context, therefore, can be used to help educate, to disrupt, encourage a deeper look into issues at hand, share a future in which change could lead us to, and or to question your beliefs, your reality of why we allow things to be okay today. We are in the age of what I'm coining as the meta-dehumanization. It sounds big, but to break it down, I created this term to mean transcending the dehumanizing nature of mechanizing our reality. We are at an all-time push for artificial intelligence to realize our human connection and understanding of the natural world inside our virtual reality through our emails, our social media posts, and generative AI art, books, and music, as well as outside our actual reality through data-damaging centers that harm the very environment they are built on. As with protest art, we are shining a light on the issues stemming from events that are at the very core of being human. Our sex, our skin color, our sexuality, our nationalities, and now our human consciousness. All of these clashing like waves into one another to the point that we can't see clearly through the storm of political and civil issues brewing and cycling within our political landscape. If there were ever to be a pinnacle of human design, it is when we are confronted with what we do not have. Protest art allows us to see a future of a past that never existed and fully grasp the heart of what it means to make this a reality. This nostalgic idea of returning to a world in which we were never in that reality is bittersweet. The nostalgia's defining characteristic lures us into a beautiful thought design and confronts us to make action through art. Art realizes different realities. So, my questions for you to ponder today are, what does protest art mean to you? And what reality do you wish to see? To prepare for this podcast, I researched many topics within protest art. Read the following books: Protest Art by Jessica Lack, A Brief History of Protest Art by Andrea Emelife, Data Surrealism and Their Heritage by William S. Rubin. I also read various historical articles on the civil rights movements both in the US and across the world, and a variety of topics with regards to the materials used in these art forms. Oddly enough, I also took a course in media through sociological lens this past semester and the schools of thought with regards to art history in my classes, which were extremely helpful in developing the framework for the approach to today's episode. I am extremely fortunate that I have the opportunity to develop various ways to approach any research topic, which will surely be helpful in future episodes of this podcast. I'll have the resources used in this episode either listed or linked in the description. Every image shown is with respect to their owners or Creative Commons license and is used in this episode for the purpose of educational content. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow the buzzwords. Please support this podcast in any way you are able to. On the website, I do have a new subscription feature, and a quick note, I myself am not a fan of subscriptions, so I also made sure that you can also make a one-time donation as well. This way you can support the Art History of Materials podcast. Join the Discord community to meet people like you with interdisciplinary focus on the art materials and the culture of materials. I am currently running a Doctors Without Borders campaign for both Twitch and the podcast, so be sure to take a look at the description for the links on how you can support Doctors Without Borders. It's a fantastic organization that supports doctors reaching areas that are in need of immediate medical relief aid. If you would like to sponsor an episode topic or join me on a future podcast episode, reach out in Discord. I'm keeping a list and I'm adding it to the schedule. So like literally reach out, friend. I'd be super thankful. It's such a cool community and I'd love to have you join me. That's all. And if someone has not told you yet today, please let me be the first. I love you. Please take care of yourself. Go get some food, go get some water, go get some rest. You deserve to take care of yourself, and then you can create your own protest art. Have a great day, and happy With that said, just create some... It's fine. Be sure to take a look at the description for the links on how you can support the Doctors Without Borders campaign. Words. Good tea. For artists of all levels. Oh my god, excuse me. Good tea. In another lifetime over a century ago, women across the U.S. straightened their yellow, purple, and white striped sashes. Oh my gosh. Sashes. The working definition changes over time to include new thoughts that have yet to be introduced. Oh my god, I didn't like any of that. Let's try that again. Political art that explores political The artist is in a unique position. One of the most important lines of thinking that came from Dadaism sparked thoughts of what art could be and how could we protest the irrationally. Dadaism sparked thoughts of what art could be and how could protest. I have words. I have so many words. I have words.